only the people that are calling back are the, people who made it, kind of like that high school graduation phenomenon where you don't want to go back to your 10-year reunion unless you're like well settled and you're proud of your life. Obviously, you're not going to go back if you're a total loser. Today we're going to solve an insurance analytics problem, and we're going to dive into how to properly tackle this kind of question. I'm going to go through every segment by segment. So let's say that you have access to data on college programs and degrees, potential student finances, and historical college alumni salary data. That's a dope-ass data set. Your job is to give college recommendations for any potential college student based on an assumption that the students are looking to maximize the value of their education from a cost perspective. How do you come up with a system to do so? Right, that's a lot of word blab. What is actually happening here? What are they actually asking for? Oh my God, I'd have to ask to repeat the question if I was taking this interview. All right. So, if we are to give college recommendations for any potential college student based on the assumption they're looking to maximize their value, we're looking for a good ROI. So, none of that liberal arts shit. But actually, seriously though, studies have shown that I believe that liberal arts degrees and colleges are dying. And so, one reason for that is because the value system is actually not going towards ROI perspective, right? Putting them through school and actually getting them so that they can work a job afterwards that's not at McDonald's. It's at like these big paying tech companies, right? Well, so if we have this data, then specifically what we really want to know is how much money do we put in and how much money do we get out after, let's say, working for 10 years after we graduate, right? That's all this thing is asking. That's why it's asked from an insurance company, right? So specifically, the goal here, right, is to maximize ROI, baby. So clarifying questions. What can we ask? Clarifying questions, right? So I know it's maximize ROI, but I could clarify and be like, is the goal, and I'm just going to come up with this metric, right? And I'm just going to clarify that is the goal to maximize the amount of money in dollars, or do memorable experiences also count? Like football games and making lifelong friends? Probably not, given that this is a data science interview, all right? Okay, so solutions. What does my data set look like? When these questions are living in the ambiguous, we have to put it into the real life, right? Which means an actual CSV data set, right? So I have data like college programs and degrees. So what I can do is just make some more assumptions here, right? So I could say like degrees, college programs. So this is like bachelor's, master's, etc. Historical college data, we could say the year. So let's say like year of graduation. And then we also have salary after X years, right? Surveyed. And let's just say that for now, right? And then maybe their job title and other stuff. All right, so I have all this data, right? And now what I have to do is just pretty simple. You could actually just build a straight up model, but at the same time, you do want to figure out what the actual goals are. So if it was just for money, right, and we had all this data, we could basically build a model based off of the best ROI school. So one thing I want to add right here is like, obviously, tuition. So basically, which one will X-fold increase, which college program would X-fold increase my chance of salary after 10 years? This can be done by building a model, all right? Let's build a linear regression model. Cool. There's a couple of issues with this, right? We can add some edge cases here, specifically around the fact that the data set could be biased. We could have, only the people that are calling back are the, people who made it, kind of like that high school graduation phenomenon where you don't want to go back to your 10-year reunion unless you're like well settled and you're proud of your life. Obviously, you're not going to go back if you're a total loser. So example scenario here with the survey data. Additionally, also, a lot of that, I would say that like if we're trying to give it from a value of education from a cost perspective, then yes, we answered this question. But at the same time, we also have to think about kind of like cost of living as well. And so this is kind of just the data set of the outcomes, but like then we have to go into like extra costs, right? Which could be specifically around extra costs. So that could be like cost of living at each program. And then last thing would be trends over time. So schools that actually get better. This could be just because the school is in a actually good place to live in with lots of industry thriving. So if you think about how COVID spread everything apart, before you would go recruit at your nearby university, now it's a little bit different in the fact that a lot of these outside cities like Vegas or Seattle rose up a huge ton, and a lot of people actually got employed there. So does the ROI over time increase? Lastly, I want to add in a few different kinds of features. One could be about taking out loans and like debt comfortableness. I see a comment down here where if the student is not poor or willing to take on huge debt, we can examine all the programs and see what pays the most in the future. I mean, I think that's what we'd be doing normally, but I think if we're talking about maximizing ROI, we have to look at different kinds of time horizons, right? And also people's comfortableness with debt, right? Like if I'm going to go to MIT, sure, that's going to cost a lot more, but I'm going to get a lot more money on the flip side, right? And that's only if you're looking at the survey data of the people who already made it as well. So that's a little bit of a bias. But like if you're a person who also looks at this kind of data to make a decision about college, you're probably also very motivated towards a strong outcome. So your debt comfortableness is also a factor that we can add here. And because it's an insurance agency question in an interview, I'd like to add that it's good to think about what the actual broader goal is for, right? Like what is this actually being used for? So maybe we can put this at the very top. What is the application? Is it a formal website? So what I want to add is what's the application here, right? And this is something that we probably should have clarified at the beginning. But we can understand, like, is it for a form on a website? Does it drive leads to student financing companies? Like, if you fill out this form, or is this a model that can show you, like, the best ROI value colleges? Just because of the fact that, like, we want to build something that is specific towards the use case, right? So if it's about, like, a student trying to figure out how much debt they're comfortable with taking on, I would say that then it's not a student that has a lot of, that is trying to focus on debt here. If we're trying to curate something for student debt, then depending on the different options, you would be interested in like a 10% reduction in your potential alumni pay if you had to take, let's say, 20% less debt, right? So it just kind of depends on like how you feel about different financial leverage things you could do as well. And so that would be the application if I'm actually a student looking for financing and the company is trying to build this model to acquire more student brokerage services basically to get loans. All right, so that's kind of how I approach the problem. It's a little bit harder without a mock interviewer here, I'm not gonna lie. But most of the analytics here isn't really, this really isn't an analytics question. This is more like a business kind of case question based on like establishing exactly what the use case, what the goal is, then having some technical knowledge to know that you can build a model for this. All I did was throw out linear regression because I needed to understand the actual outcome that we get at the very end. Sorry, I need to understand if the factors that we put in here contribute towards predicting a salary after X years from the survey data that we get. So overall, I hope this was helpful.